James Cameron's confident Avatar Fire and Ash will make money, but says he'll stop making more films if it flops. I've been in Avatar land for 20 years. If this is where it ends, cool. It cost a ton to make, and it needs to make 2 tons to be profitable.
James Cameron just dropped a bombshell that has Disney in full-blown panic mode. After years of being Hollywood's golden visionary, the man who created Titanic, Terminator, and Avatar has reached his breaking point. And word inside the industry is that if Avatar 3, Fire and Ash doesn't perform at the box office, he's walking away from the billion-dollar universe he built.
3 years ago when Way of Water came out, James Cameron said, yeah, it needs to be like the biggest movie in history to make a profit.
Correct.
And so we were all like, holy like you're telling me this thing needs to make $3 billion?
Correct.
Which, like, was ridiculous. And then he did come out and clarify. He's like, I might have been a little like facetious. It actually needs to be like the 12th biggest movie of all time to make money.
Disney's executives, already reeling from one box office failure after another, are said to be out over this news. The franchise they've been counting on to keep the lights on might be about to lose its creator, which means no Avatar 4, no Avatar 5, and a clean exit from Pandora. Text messages flew between producers over the past year as Disney faced one of its roughest stretches in recent memory. Phone calls between execs and online insiders all hinted at the same thing, that tensions between Cameron's team and Disney's higher-ups had reached a boiling point. Some claimed he's frustrated with budget constraints, while others say he's furious about creative interference. But the message stayed consistent. James Cameron doesn't bluff. The timing couldn't be worse for Disney because right now their empire is shaking. Once unbeatable, their magic touch has started to fade as fans tune out, franchises lose steam, and investors demand answers. A director like Cameron, a man who's delivered nothing but mega hits, suddenly hinting that he might walk away reportedly sent panic through Disney's halls. $2 billion globally. That's what Avatar: The Way of Water earned in an era when most blockbusters struggled to make half that amount. Cameron doesn't miss, and he doesn't compromise. And now he's apparently telling Disney that if Fire and Ash doesn't hit the mark, he's finished with Pandora. Whispers spread quickly through Hollywood as the news leaked. Understanding why this single threat could send the entire studio into chaos requires looking at just how desperate Disney has become. Disney's been struggling, and behind the glossy trailers and corporate optimism, the reality is far messier. Once the unstoppable force of entertainment, their recent run of box office results has been anything but magical, as movies expected to dominate ended up barely breaking, even while franchises that once defined pop culture have started to lose their spark. The Marvels underperformed. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny stumbled. Wish didn't deliver the fairy tale ending Disney hoped for. And even Haunted Mansion and Lightyear couldn't pull the audiences the company banked on. Billions in production budgets, marketing costs, and brand reputation sat on the line, and the returns just weren't there. Behind closed doors, insiders say the pressure at Disney has been suffocating. Creative teams are being told to play it safe, while executives demand guaranteed hits in an industry that no longer offers guarantees. Somewhere inside that pressure cooker sits James Cameron, one of the only filmmakers in the world who still delivers consistent, jaw-dropping success. Avatar isn't just another movie to Disney, it's a lifeline. That's exactly why his recent comments hit like a thunderclap. Reports suggest that the studio has been leaning on Cameron's Avatar sequels to balance out its losses. Disney's theme parks, streaming service, and film divisions are all intertwined, which means when one stumbles, the others feel it. Avatar 3, Fire and Ash carried the weight of being the big win of 2025, a cinematic spectacle that would silence critics' ease and reassure investors, but the man behind it is already threatening to walk, and that dream starts to crumble. Fans, too, are noticing the shift. Online forums are flooded with speculation about whether Cameron is done, whether Disney pushed him too far, and what happens to the story of Pandora if he leaves. For a studio built on control, that kind of uncertainty is terrifying. One insider even described the atmosphere at Disney headquarters as tense and nervous, with people walking on eggshells. Meetings that used to feel celebratory now feel like damage control. And through it all, one name keeps echoing through the halls: James Cameron. Understanding what makes Cameron's frustration so dangerous for Disney requires looking at his legacy and why this man refuses to play by anyone's rules. When Cameron says he's had enough, he means it. James Cameron isn't just a director. He's an empire unto himself, a relentless perfectionist who built his career on doing the impossible. From sinking the Titanic to creating entire alien worlds, his projects have always redefined what cinema can be. But that perfection comes at a price because Cameron doesn't like compromise. And lately, that's exactly what he's being asked to do. Those close to his production team say he's been increasingly frustrated by Disney's new approach to filmmaking. Cameron wants bold bold ideas while the studio wants predictable ones. Decades of earning the right to chase his vision now collide with corporate spreadsheets that are starting to tell him what he can and can't shoot. And to Cameron, that's the ultimate insult. Stories like Avatar aren't just movies to him, they're worlds. Pandora has been in development since the mid-1990s, long before CGI could even handle his imagination. Avatar 3, Fire and Ash isn't just another sequel, it's the emotional core of the entire saga. Disney, worried about costs and deadlines, reportedly keeps pushing for changes that would make it more commercial, and that's where the conflict began. Cameron's crew members describe long, tense meetings, quiet frustration, and moments where the director reportedly said he'd rather walk away than see the story get watered down. He's not bluffing because he's done it before. During Titanic, studios begged him to cut costs, and he threatened to quit then too. The result ended up being a masterpiece and the highest-grossing film of all time, until he broke his own record with Avatar. Word spreading that Cameron told Disney he wouldn't move forward with Avatar 4 or 5 if Fire and Ash underperforms made people believe it. He's not using the threat as leverage, he's making a point. Success isn't just about money to him. Proving that vision still matters in a world ruled by algorithms and corporate fear is what drives him. That's why Disney's terrified. Losing Cameron means they don't just lose a filmmaker, they lose the filmmaker, the one person capable of making Pandora real. Cameron's warning wasn't just a tantrum, it was a line in the sand, and Disney's reaction has been pure panic. When the rumor first hit that James Cameron had thrown down an ultimatum, most people brushed it off. Cameron's a passionate guy, known for fiery comments and blunt honesty, but this time, insiders said the words carried a different kind of weight. The message boiled down to this: if Avatar 3, Fire and Ash doesn't meet expectations, the journey ends there. No Avatar 4, no Avatar 5, no more Pandora. Behind the scenes, the tension reportedly started during a post-production meeting at Lightstorm Entertainment. Executives were combing through early projections, comparing them to The Way of Water and previous Avatar numbers, when someone mentioned adjusting expectations. That phrase lit the fuse. Cameron, known for his razor-sharp focus, allegedly snapped back that if the audience doesn't come, that's the signal, and he's not making these movies just to fill content quotas. That single remark spread fast, moving as whispers to agents, producers, and eventually Disney's executive floor. To the studio, it wasn't just a warning, it was a potential disaster. Hundreds of millions invested in long-term Avatar infrastructure now hung in the balance, including sets, underwater technology, and cast contracts stretching years ahead. Cameron quitting would collapse the entire operation like dominoes. People who've worked with him say the threat makes perfect sense. Cameron believes every film must earn its right to exist, and he told interviewers years ago that if the next chapters didn't connect with audiences, he'd pivot to documentaries or smaller projects. It wasn't arrogance, it was integrity. Disney, still licking wounds from recent flops, heard only one thing: their most valuable director might abandon ship. Picture the boardroom the day those reports surfaced, with spreadsheets frozen mid-scroll and marketing teams asking if they should alter the promotional campaign. Some executives reportedly argued to contain the story before it hit the trades, while others wanted to reassure investors, but the panic was impossible to hide. Disney needed Fire and Ash to win, and now the man responsible for that victory was threatening to walk. The irony is that Cameron's threat might have been exactly what the franchise needed. It reminded everyone that this wasn't another corporate product. It was a passion project built on risk, artistry, and obsession. Disney doesn't thrive on uncertainty, though. They thrive on control, and control was slipping fast. When one of the most powerful directors on Earth tells the biggest studio in the world he's ready to quit, the reaction is never calm. Inside Disney, the mood reportedly shifted overnight. What had been cautious optimism around Avatar 3 turned into quiet alarm as emergency conference calls were scheduled, memos circulated, and one insider described the vibe as controlled chaos. Everyone wanted the same thing: reassurance that Cameron wasn't serious. Cameron doesn't make empty threats, though, and the lack of immediate clarification made things worse. Executives began recalculating projections to figure out how much revenue would vanish if Avatar 4 and 5 never saw the light of day. The numbers were staggering, with billions in potential losses, not to mention the damage to Disney World's Pandora theme park expansion and merchandising plans already in motion. Marketing teams reportedly scrambled to reevaluate strategy. Some wanted to emphasize Cameron's creative genius to reignite fan excitement, while others pushed for a back-to-basics campaign focusing on the film's emotional story rather than its technical marvels. Disney's top brass supposedly reached out directly to Cameron's representatives, hoping to smooth things over, or at least gauge how serious he really was. Insiders claimed the conversations were tense. Cameron wasn't angry for show, he was exhausted. Years in underwater tanks, fine-tuning performance capture, and building entire ecosystems from scratch had taken their toll. And while he delivered visuals that redefined cinema, corporate leaders obsessed over spreadsheets and synergy charts. That disconnect became the flashpoint. One source put it bluntly: Cameron doesn't care about quarterly reports, he cares about legacy. That terrified Disney more than any box office dip, because legacy isn't negotiable, not to Cameron. Panic rippled beyond the studio walls as analysts began speculating about contingency plans. Could Disney finish Avatar 4 without him? Could another director take over? The idea felt sacrilegious. Replacing Cameron on Avatar would be like replacing Walt Disney on Mickey Mouse. It simply didn't work. Damage control mode kicked in at the company. Meetings ran late into the night as PR teams drafted careful statements reaffirming confidence in Cameron and the franchise. Behind those polished press releases, anxiety ruled the day. Every executive knew that if Fire and Ash failed, the fallout wouldn't stop at the box office. It would shake the foundations of Disney's entire film division. That's when the whispers began about what happens if Cameron wasn't bluffing at all. The more they tried to contain the story, the louder it got, spreading online, in the trades, and across Hollywood's rumor mill. What happened next would only make Disney's panic worse. Once the story leaked, it spread faster than wildfire. Within hours, entertainment forums, insider blogs, and YouTube commentators were dissecting every word of Cameron's supposed threat. Headlines screamed across timelines with variations like Cameron at war with Disney, Avatar 3 in trouble, and is this the end of Pandora? The line between rumor and reality blurred, and that's exactly when the panic reached the public eye. Insiders tried to keep quiet, but in Hollywood, silence speaks louder than words. When reporters reached out for comment, Disney issued a brief, carefully worded statement about being excited for the next chapter in the Avatar saga. But the tone didn't fool anyone. There was no energy, no confidence, just damage control. Analysts began weighing in as the story grew. Some argued that Cameron was pulling a power move, a way to force Disney to back off creatively and give him full control. Others claimed he was genuinely fed up with the system, tired of being treated like a cog in a corporate machine. A few even speculated that Fire and Ash might already be over budget, leading to heated internal debates about cost-cutting and release schedules. Fans came next. Social media lit up with theories, memes, and emotional pleas as some defended Cameron, calling him the last real visionary in Hollywood, while others accused Disney of ruining another franchise. On Reddit, threads exploded with speculation about the film's plot and whether the rumored tension would affect the final product. All the buzz, even the negative kind, made people more curious about Avatar 3. The rumor mill fed on every small development. When a crew member posted a vague tweet about long days and big decisions, it was instantly dissected as proof of behind-the-scenes chaos. When Cameron skipped an industry panel, fans took it as a silent protest. Every move became evidence of something bigger, and the narrative had taken on a life of its own. While Disney's PR department tried to calm the storm, others inside the studio started wondering if the publicity could work in their favor. Controversy sells, after all. Some marketing execs reportedly suggested leaning into the drama, framing Fire and Ash as Cameron's most personal and high-stakes film yet. It was risky, but at this point, Disney was running out of options. Still, beneath all the speculation, one truth remained unspoken. Cameron's words had cut deep. He'd exposed the cracks in the foundation, the growing divide between art and corporate control, and that's something no press release could fix. The question wasn't just whether Avatar 3 would succeed anymore. It was whether the world still believed in James Cameron's vision, and for Disney, the stakes had never been higher. By the time the dust began to settle, one thing was clear. Avatar 3, Fire and Ash wasn't just another sequel anymore. It had become a test of Disney's faith in creativity, a test of Cameron's endurance, and a test of whether audiences still cared about Pandora 16 years after the first movie changed cinema. Inside Lightstorm's editing rooms, the tension was reportedly palpable. Every frame, every sound mix, every visual effect carried new pressure. The team wasn't just trying to make a great movie, they were trying to make a statement. Cameron was said to be pushing harder than ever, demanding final say over everything, from the pacing to the color grading. He told colleagues that Fire and Ash had to remind people why Avatar exists, and that determination started to infect everyone around him. Disney's anxiety never faded, though. Early internal screenings led to mixed reactions, as some executives loved it, calling it the most emotional Avatar yet, while others worried it was too slow for general audiences. That divide mirrored the exact tension Cameron had warned about, the struggle between storytelling and commercialism. He wanted myth, they wanted money. Industry insiders began whispering that Disney was quietly preparing two very different futures, one where Avatar 3 crushed the box office and restored investor confidence, and another where the film stumbled, forcing painful decisions about the remaining sequels. It wasn't just speculation anymore, it was survival planning. Outside the studio, fans began treating Fire and Ash like a cinematic event, the moment that could define whether Hollywood still had room for visionaries. Trailers began trending instantly, and every still image sparked theories about new tribes, conflicts, and themes. Under all that excitement was a sense of tension, though. People weren't just excited, they were curious to see whether Cameron would prove everyone wrong again. That's exactly what he wanted. Fire and Ash wasn't a movie made under pressure to Cameron, it was a movie born from pressure. The fire represented more than just the story's elemental conflict. It was a reflection of what was happening behind the scenes, creation through chaos. Success would prove that creative control still mattered in a corporate world. Failure would be the end of one of cinema's greatest modern sagas. For Disney, that's a nightmare scenario. Billions on the line, years of world building, and the possibility that the man who brought Pandora to life could walk away forever. This isn't just about one movie anymore. It's about pride, power, and legacy. And as the release date draws closer, one question looms over Hollywood. Can James Cameron save Disney, or will he be the one to burn it all down? As the noise around Cameron's ultimatum continued to echo, Disney found itself at a crossroads. The higher-ups knew they couldn't afford to lose him, not after the decades of artistry and revenue he'd brought to the table. At the same time, their empire wasn't built built to bend around one man, no matter how legendary. The tension became a silent standoff between vision and authority, art and commerce. Behind closed doors, insiders say Disney began quietly shifting strategies. Budgets were re-evaluated, upcoming projects were delayed, and all eyes turned to Avatar 3, Fire and Ash. It wasn't just another release date on a calendar anymore. It had become the defining moment for the entire studio's future. Executives stopped referring to it as the next Avatar movie and started calling it the turning point. Cameron, meanwhile, doubled down. Instead of softening his tone, he focused on perfecting his film. Rumor has it he barely attended promotional briefings, leaving marketing entirely in Disney's hands. The movie was his message as far as he was concerned. Every frame was a statement that creativity still mattered, that cinematic immersion could still mean something, and that audiences were smarter than corporations gave them credit for. As final cuts were assembled and visual effects polished, something strange began to happen though. Those who had doubted Cameron started to change their tune. Early previews reportedly left crew members in tears. The emotion, the spectacle, the sheer scope delivered everything people expect from a James Cameron film. Even the skeptics inside Disney began to whisper that he might be about to pull it off again. Still, the threat lingered. Every interview, every leak, every offhand remark reignited speculation about whether he would stay or walk. No one knew for sure, and that uncertainty only amplified the tension leading up to release day. When that day comes, the world won't just be watching the screen, they'll be watching him. Fire and Ash isn't just a sequel to James Cameron. It's a statement of war against mediocrity. At its core, this story isn't just about one director or one studio. It's about what happens when creativity collides with control. James Cameron's rumored threat sent shockwaves through an industry that's forgotten what true risk looks like. For years, studios have chased algorithms, focus groups, and safe risks. But Cameron's defiance reminded everyone that the biggest successes in film history never came from playing it safe. They came from believing in something insane enough to work. Disney's panic wasn't just fear of losing a franchise, it was fear of losing the illusion of control. They've built an empire around predictability, yet here stands Cameron, a man who refuses to be predictable. His films take years, cost fortunes, and defy logic, but they connect because they're driven by obsession, not spreadsheets. That's the kind of chaos Hollywood desperately needs. Avatar 3, Fire and Ash now stands as a symbol, a test of whether art can still win against corporate fear. If it breaks records again, Cameron will walk away as the man who forced a multi-billion-dollar company to respect creativity. If it stumbles, he'll still walk away as the man who refused to compromise his vision for a paycheck. Either way, he wins. That might be the real reason Disney panicked. Not because he threatened to quit, but because they realized they needed him more than he needed them. For the rest of Hollywood, it's a wake-up call. Audiences are tired of recycled stories and lifeless sequels. They want authenticity, ambition, something that feels alive. Cameron's warning, whether true or exaggerated, is a reminder that great cinema isn't built by committees. It's built by visionaries who are willing to risk everything, even their careers, to tell stories that matter. As fans wait for Fire and Ash to hit theaters, one question hangs heavy in the air. Will this be the movie that saves Disney, or the one that exposes everything wrong with modern Hollywood? Whatever the outcome, one thing is undeniable. James Cameron has already won the battle for attention. And if history has taught us anything about Cameron, it's this. When the world doubts him, that's exactly when he delivers something no one saw coming. Pandora isn't just his creation in the end, it's his rebellion.